So I really hate Rean. If any of you have ever seen me talk in Discord before, you know I can get pretty salty when I'm fighting any Rean. So here's my hot take. I think Rean is probably the most poorly designed character in this entire game. I'm talking about gameplay function, of course. Hard to hate Rean as a person. You just want to be him. He has that huge harem of his in Cold Steel. But anyway, my big problem with Rean is that he's just so poorly balanced. So you see Transforce first picking Rean here just because, well, that's just how powerful he is. He first bans my Rosensteel, which is the smart move to make in that case. But in this match, my Rosensteel is actually 3 stars, so it actually wouldn't have done anything for me even if I had her. So, just take a look at the team I'm going to get here. I'm going to have Juggler, who is one of the best AoE healers. I'm going to have Liana, another one of the best AoE healers and cleansers. And I'm even going to have a second healer on top of that. And even with all that, it does not save you against Rean. Rean is just total bullshit, and really, the source of his bullshit, at least in terms of debuffs, all comes from one single debuff, and that's Curse of Wounding. Rean getting Curse of Wounding is probably one of the most baffling decisions by the devs. It's not even just that he got Curse of Wounding, he got a Curse of Wounding that lasts 2 turns, which means unlike when you're fighting against Listel, you can't just end your turn and have it go away. It's a 50% strength Curse of Wounding, which is the same strength as a 6-star Listel, which is absolutely absurd just from the face of it. And unlike Listel, who applies maybe like 2 debuffs with something like Mind Bore plus her talent, Rean applies like 4 or 5 debuffs every time he AoEs. Which means you can't even reliably cleanse it. And even if you could, Rean does so much damage in AoE that it just doesn't matter half the time. Now, granted, this is sort of the case with Listel as well. If Listel blood dances you, you take a ton of damage and now you have Curse of Wounding and you can't heal up. But of course, the thing everyone learned over time is to just equip a bunch of meditation rings and bracer emblems, and just ignore the fact that Listel even exists. You of course can't do that against Rean, who just does AoE damage like a good little boy. And of course, to add insult to injury, Rean's 3C ability allows him to put stacks of debuffs that deal fixed damage that cannot be resisted, pretty much because they knew that that's how people took care of Listel and they wanted to add that final insult from him. Another bullshit aspect of Rean is just how insanely tanky he is. Rean just does not... He gets tons and tons of damage resistance from transforming, and if you place him on a forest tile with those Steel Wings, or you have Highlanders trained, his soldiers are just so tanky. Generally speaking, he can't take a shot from one of the strongest DPS in the game, like for example an Angry Yusuke or something, but it's just kind of crazy to me that Rean can get tanky enough that he's arguably tankier than like half the tanks in the game. You can kill him with an assassin sometimes if you have a really stacked Zerida or something, but just the fact that they made him so tanky, on top of the fact that he is just so good with all those debuffs. He increases his own stats, he reduces his own cooldowns, he heals himself every single time he uses a skill. They gave the guy just about everything to make him as insane as possible. So anyway, here we have Rean using his first AoE on me. This one at first wasn't too bad because he didn't get any sort of good debuffs, but he did get the clock, which of course is another issue when you're facing Rean. Like, he can just clock over and over. That's a thing that can happen with Bolza as well. But because of the aforementioned bullshit of Rean being able to roll Curse of Wounding, Rean clocking is just that much more dangerous. So of course in this case, you're also going to see a good showcase of Florentia and how good she is when she has a vacuum buff. In this case, she's getting buffed by Rosensteel. So just very good at pressuring me and following up over and over. Rean uses a second AoE here. He gets a heal block on Juggler and a Curse of Wounding on Matthew. But he doesn't clock this time, which I guess is nice. But he still has another AoE to go. And of course he has Licorice waiting in the back there to just overload me with debuffs. Another thing I guess is worth mentioning is just how big Rean's AoE span is. The fact that his AoE span is so big means that it's actually very hard to maneuver your Sky Archer, so that the Sky Archer is in range to cleanse everybody, but still stays out of range of Rean so that it doesn't just get one shot or it's silenced or something. And if the Rean decides to not go for the range from Balance Blade, they can of course go with something like Demon Slayer and just get even more debuffs and dispels, as well as doing a lot more damage. And of course you can also go with Mimir's Hammer on him. Mimir's Hammer on Rean is actually very good. Even outside of AI Arena where you might have seen it. So here's a pretty good showcase of how tanky Rean is. Obviously it doesn't help that Matthew took a ton of damage, but there was just no way for me to heal him back up because of Curse of Wounding. And I had no choice here but to see if it was possible for Matthew to get a kill on him, which of course he didn't. So right here I finally bring in my Sky Archer and try to remove some of the pressure that he's putting on me. And for the moment it might look like that I am safe to survive because I've removed a lot of the dangerous debuffs. But here of course comes the Rean 3C, which not only puts Curse of Wounding on Matthew yet again, also silences Almeida. I got a Curse of Wounding on Juggler as well. And of course he gets another clock. Shit like this is why Rean is bullshit. Because honestly, like, what is there really that you can do against this? Now I know a lot of you are probably getting a little frustrated at me and probably saying like, well, you have Liana, just bring Gospel, you scrub. And I'll concede that maybe Gospel could have saved me here. It's really hard to know for sure. One of the problems with Gospel is that of course it can only target one person at a time. And a smart Rean player will typically just wait around for the Gospel to wear off before they start shooting off all their AoEs, and in which case the Gospel just ends up being useless. Gospel is only really good if you Gospel some kind of key character that can win the game for you. In this case, maybe if I Gospel Juggler, it would have saved me from what's going to happen right here, is that Juggler is just going to die to a Florentia attack. Florentia, of course, is at 100% life, so her soldiers are actually doing a ton of damage. But anyway, that's Rean for you. Just exploding entire teams, and this is why you see me banning Rean first a lot of the time. I actually do think this game could have been winnable for me if I didn't face 2 clocks in a row like that, but sometimes that's just how the game goes. Anyway, thank you for coming here and listening to me rant for 5 minutes about Rean. Feel free to tell me how much of a scrub I am in the comments. See you guys next time.